The peasantry is strong in this one, but that's okay because we take the initiative to see where games like this will take us. The game we have here is Banished. It's a city building game developed and published by Shining Rock Software, owned and operated solely by one man. He did everything: coding, graphics, audio, business, PR, everything. So let's take a look. This does not look like something a single person made themselves. He must be some kind of superhuman, but anyway. The premise of the game is that you were exiled, or banished as the name implies, from wherever it is you came from, so you get to start a new life somewhere else. Gather resources from the environment, turn it into something the people can use, produce food, clothing, shelter, and expand from there. There's a wide variety of food you can produce for your town. Hunting and gathering food is the easiest at the beginning. Growing crops and raising animals produces more food, but they require you to obtain them through trading before you can produce them. Food production areas like farmland and pastures can be resized, but I don't see a reason not to make it as large as possible. You also have to deal with the cold, especially during the winter season. The people will return home when they're cold or hungry, so maximizing the time they're outside and working is how you maximize production. Same thing with tools. The longer it takes to replace their tools, the less productive they are, which usually means less food. I actually made the mistake of keeping all my houses and production buildings in the center of my town and having all of my farmland off to the side. The farmers would walk long distances to and from their homes to warm up and get something to eat, and they would also walk back and forth when they need to replace their tools. So all this travel time is affecting food production, and this ultimately led to many of my people starving to death, even though my farms should be able to handle it. I've also had people starving to death when I had lots of food available. Logistics does play a big part in the supply chain, so building placement is very important here. The difficulty is maintained the entire time you're building the town. What I mean by this is that you need to make sure the town has enough food so everyone stays alive while you expand. So it's not like other city building games where people can just join or leave at will. People starving to death takes a long time to get back, and in many cases, I just start a new game because it's near impossible to recover. The town just dies, so there is this challenge in that you can actually lose. I really like that. There is no lose state, but it's close to it, and it might as well just have a game over screen when everyone dies. If there's one thing that bothers me here, it's the lack of a combat system. You're creating a new town in the wilderness. Where are the wolves? What about bandits raiding the town? This is a completely defenseless town in the middle of nowhere, and there's nothing dangerous out there. But this is just me nitpicking at this point. I like the game as it is, so you've heard my first impressions on the game. Now you hear my analysis. How will this do in the video game market? The developer made an AMA on Reddit that reveals a lot of the technical details of the game. Many things are on its own execution thread. Things like pathfinding and the sound system all have their own threads specifically for their workload, so this means a really complex pathfinding calculation won't cause the game to stutter. Keep in mind, all of this was made by a single person, and this is his only game, so of course, it would be in his best interest to keep the game alive. There are a few bugs in the game, but I haven't come across them yet. These first few weeks will be all about fixing them. The sandbox nature of the game also means we'll be seeing a lot of unique Let's Plays, as well as a lot of tutorials. The exposure won't be at the level of a AAA title, but it'll still be substantial. After a few months, I would expect to see more content for the game. More buildings, basically more stuff you can do in the game. Going back to the AMA, he does talk about things like an expansion and the possibility of a combat system in the future. Games like this are never as big as games in other genres, but they never really die off either, that is, if it's good enough. And I haven't even seen a game like this before, so people will continue playing it from time to time. Just like you hear people talking about the older SimCity games or the Tropico games. If there is something similar to Banished, leave a comment and tell me, because I haven't heard of it. I don't play many of these games, but I do like them. The one thing that interests me personally is the underlying engine. It's shocking to me that many games to this day are still single-threaded. That is, all the calculations are done on a single CPU core while the rest of the hardware is doing nothing. In layman's terms, Banished will run very well on an older PC. Any old quad-core should be good enough. Making a multi-threaded game is very hard to do, but we've had multi-core processors for more than a decade. It's time for our software to use the hardware we already have. In my opinion, if a single person can create a multi-threaded game by himself, the larger studios have no excuse. But of course, more important than the game engine is the game itself. I look at this game, and then I look at the SimCity game that came out last year. Banished has an agent system that works. They take the most efficient routes to their job, they return to the same house they live in, and you can make your town as big as you want. A single person made this game, so it's clear to me that the problems with SimCity are more political than technical. I'll just leave it at that. Banished is a pretty cool game. It has that addictive quality to it that other city building games have, and it offers a good challenge. $20 is a good price for what you get, and we'll follow up on the game in a few months to see the new content. Thanks for watching!